everyone. I'm Prakash. I'm the founder president of Wholistic Health Alliance, which is a non-profit under which we have the Youth Brigade. And the presentation today is from one of our Youth Brigade members, Aagam, Prakash. I want to take a few minutes to give you a little overview of Wholistic Health Alliance and the Youth Brigade. I think everyone in the room will agree that we are all engaged in activities that are taking us to the current definition of success, which is, what is the current definition of success?
Make more money.
And assets, money and assets, position, right? Material, yeah. So most of us are engaged in those activities. Now everything will come under that, and including the youth. Our youth are predominantly engaged in testing and preparing for SATs and writing essays and Ivy League colleges, and those are the preoccupations of the youth today. And everything gets narrowed to how do we make a successful college application. So even the volunteering is done primarily for that purpose, not really necessarily that there is a connection with the cause that they are choosing, So really nothing wrong with it, but we are losing out on a very important area which the adults and the youth alike are missing out, which really should be the main focus of our pursuits, which is health. I mean, it's a cliched saying, health is wealth, but really we need to look at it a little more deeply and understand that health is really our wealth, because no matter how much money we have in our banks and what assets we have, ultimately if our body is not well, if our mind is not well, we are not able to enjoy that, and ultimately you may end up losing your wealth to the illnesses if you are not doing self-care. So I just want to give a quick example to the kids. When you buy a new gadget, what do you do with it? First thing, what do you do? How do you try and learn to operate it? A laptop, a cell phone, what do you first do?
What did you do when you just got your iPad?
Turn it on.
Okay. Yes, obviously. What else? How do you learn how to operate it?
Instructions?
Yes, very good. So we need a user manual, correct? We try to understand what model this gadget is and what this model can do, what this model cannot do, and what are some of its maintenance protocols, like regular updates, etc. We never think about that, about us in that way, that we are also a particular model. We are all individuals, we are all unique individuals. And what is my model? What are the things that are going to work for me? What are the things that are not going to work for me? How do I do regular maintenance and upgrades for myself? So in short, we don't think about self-care. We somehow think we have been programmed to live forever, and there is not going to be any problem that's going to be coming our way. Typically, when you're well, that's what you're thinking. And you're not worrying about your food choices, your lifestyle choices, how much sleep you're getting. Because somehow, especially before 50, there is a feeling of invincibility, right? Nothing is going to happen to us. But that's not true. Actually, we are programmed for death at birth. So actually, we should be looking at how to maintain trouble-free existence while we are doing well. That's the smart thing to do. So Wholistic Health Alliance was primarily founded to bring health into the consciousness of the community, because we don't talk about this topic enough. It's not there in the awareness. We are putting the premium fuel in our cars, but when it comes to us, we eat any trash. So the whole goal was there were threefold aim for which this nonprofit was founded. One was to provide a unified platform to all holistic practitioners, because they are usually not supported. There is no money in wellness, as you understand. Mostly, if people are well, doctors will be out of business. So it's not a lucrative field. So holistic practitioners do not have enough support because they are not licensed, and there is not much money in people getting well, and they're not seeing them. So this was founded to provide them a platform, and also second goal was to get into the community and educate them. grassroots level. Not do just one conference and then disappear for the whole year, but really do monthly talks. So we do monthly talks, and all our talks are free, and we get to the individuals in the community, because even one life transformed is a big thing. One woman educated is a big thing. So that is the aim, that we start educating one person at a time, really about what are your alternates to non-chemical health solutions, what are your resources, and who is providing them, where are they providing it out of, how does it work. So some of the 101s of self-care and wellness. So we've been doing that. We also have resources up on our website which people can go and read. There are articles up there. And our third main goal is to educate the other side of the healthcare, which is modern medicine practitioners, and help them understand what are these modalities, how do they operate, and in what cases we can work together for the best interest of the client. So that in a nutshell is Wholistic Health Alliance. Youth Brigade was launched in 2017 with the aim of involving youth in conversations around health, for exactly the reasons I have just mentioned. I gave a TEDx talk early this year in Lexington High School, and my first opening line was to the high schoolers was, have you done nothing today? When was the last time you did nothing? And then I ended it with, schedule nothing on your calendar. Because that's what is happening to high schoolers. So different segments of the schools are having different sets of challenges. High schoolers primarily lack of sleep, so it's a very timely topic, and they suffer from burnout, from stress of expectations, and they're constantly doing something. So even the adults need to learn this, and even the high schoolers need to hear this, that there is something called nothing that they need to do. That's when creativity comes, and that's a very important, I think some of you will appreciate that who are in this line, that an empty mind is very important for out of the box thinking, for innovation, for creativity, and for health. Even we shut down our laptops, it's a machine, but we never think of shutting ourselves down or our children. It's constantly, we as parents also, we are constantly putting things in our kids' schedules. So this is a message to everybody. So the Youth Brigade was primarily founded to give health messages from youth to youth. And this way we are trying to target a few things. One is engagement of the youth in health conversations. Even if you're talking about eating sprouts or breathing differently, belly breathing, that conversation itself is something that's recorded in the brain somewhere, and it will come handy at some point. So the youth who is teaching is getting engaged in that conversation, and they're delivering that message to the peers, and the peers of course listen better to each other rather than parents giving them the messages. So engaging them in conversations around health, but also helping them improve their presentation skills, their leadership skills. So Aagam is a new joinee, but he's already vice president in our youth brigade, because he's an excellent kid and he has displayed some good leadership qualities. So, and you will see his presentation. So you will see that it's not only just helping them with their health, because if he's going to tell you about sleep, obviously he's going to learn about the value of sleep himself. Isn't that true? So that's what we want, and I'm so glad to have Youth Council Chair Robin and Catherine and all the other lovely people, and Arunji who's running Jago World, because we can engage, we can increase this outreach to the youth, and because even all our activities are all free. So this is not this is a non-profit. So, and just to wrap it up, it's a national non-profit. So currently we are in Massachusetts and Colorado, but there are other state chapters coming in the pipeline. We are very young. We just completed 4 years in 2019. So, and we have more potential for collaborations coming up and more outreach, more messaging, because a healthy world, we want, in my own practice, I'm an Ayurvedic doctor. In my own practice, I've seen that most of the people's issues started in high school and college. And primarily because they were unaware of what their choices meant in terms of the impact on health. And those 4 years can really be a game changer in terms of health. But if they knew, they would have, it's like getting off the lane, but realizing you're off the lane and coming on the lane. They never realized they were off the lane. And they had an accident, you know, in terms of health. So I feel it's very powerful, and we can change the next generation to be a more healthy one, more empowered one, and more informed one. So with that, thank you so much again for coming out on a rainy day. It's very gloomy out there. So over to Aagam. Thank you.
So real quick, I just want to introduce myself. So I'm Aagam Prakash. I'm a freshman in high school at Westboro High School down the road. And I grew up in Arizona. I moved here about a year ago, and I got involved in Wholistic Health Alliance only a couple of months ago. But now I'm the vice president of the youth brigade, and so far it's been a good experience, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with them. So without further ado, sleep for dummies. So I want to start with Thomas Alva Edison. This man, he was the inventor of the incandescent light bulb, film, phonographs, and many more gadgets. But he was also passionately against the amount of attention people gave sleep, even back in his time. His view was that time spent sleeping is time wasted, and he thought that if we were to eradicate sleep, we would simply become that much more efficient. He once wrote in his book, The Diary and Sundry Observations of Thomas A. Edison, that we are always hearing people talk about sleep, about loss of sleep as a calamity. He said they better call it loss of time, vitality, and opportunities. To Mr. Edison, this loss of time was a travesty, and he thought the death of sleep would also be the death of inefficiency. In fact, he himself only got 4 to 5 hours of sleep every night. Edison's view on sleep was accepted in his time, but in the last half century, we've learned otherwise. Sleep is not something that you can or should attempt to exterminate. Instead, it's the biological process that allows our brains to function as effectively as they do during our waking hours. Today, I'd like to begin briefly by teaching you about sleep, how it works, what it does, and how to effectively give more of it. Let's begin with how our bodies know when to sleep. So, for millions of years, humans have evolved to associate light and daytime with waking hours. This is a time to get work done, to go around and live our lives. And at the same time, we've learned to correlate darkness and nighttime with staying at home and recharging our bodies. This is known as our circadian rhythm. It's a biological alarm clock in our bodies that tells us when to sleep and when to wake, and it was programmed by the sun. In recent years, it's become very apparent how important it is, and in 2017, the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine was jointly awarded to 3 researchers for their discovery of the molecular mechanisms controlling the circadian rhythm. However, it was Mr. Edison's own invention, the incandescent light bulb, that marked the beginning of a new era, one in which sleep became cast aside and sometimes completely forgotten. The only problem is that this age has wreaked havoc on our bodies. The benefits of proper sleep are innumerable, and the consequences that follow improper sleep are severe, to say the least. So, sleep is a very important biological process, and its success is instrumental in our day-to-day lives. First, let's look at how it works and what is sleep. Well, that's a great question, and it's one that scientists have toiled with for decades, if not centuries. As a division of sleep medicine at Harvard Medical School tells it, sleep is a state that is characterized by changes in brainwave activity, breathing, heart rate, body temperature, and other physiological functions. But that's more of the scientific definition, but we all know what sleep really is. It's that thing we experience night after night, and we all know that. But the purpose of sleep is what's more fascinating to scientists, because at the moment they truthfully haven't figured it out. What they do know is that sleep is critical for proper function of the brain, with recent research suggesting that during sleep, our brain basically goes through a purification and reboot process, and many harmful toxins are removed. Aside from the brain, sleep affects almost every conceivable part and process of the human body that you can think of: the heart, the lungs, the muscle tissue, the metabolism, the immune system, and countless more. So how does this mysterious biological necessity work? To answer that, let's look at the 4 main stages of sleep. What is going on while we're sleeping in bed? Well, it turns out, contrary to popular belief, our brain is much more active than you might think. To begin, like I said, there are 4 main stages of sleep. These are known as stage 1 non-REM, 3 of these are known as non-REM sleep, while the other is REM sleep itself. Now, keep in mind that our body through the night cycles through these stages and about every 2 hours we go through these 4 stages at once. So, stage 1 non-REM sleep is the very first portion of your sleep where you're beginning to fall asleep. Stage 1 of sleep, I like to compare it to being a raft, like in a raft at sea. You're drifting to sleep, but it takes very little stimuli for you to be snapped back to reality. If a wave stirs too high, you could very easily be tossed back into the drifting ocean, which in this case would be the world of wakefulness. This period of sleep is only a few minutes long, and it's a small total of the total time we spend sleeping. The body functions associated with stage 1 non-REM are slower eye movement, less rapid breaths, and decreasing heart rate. All these factors cause your muscle to relax, and during this time, your brain finds itself switching from waking mode to rest mode. Stage 2 non-REM is a lighter period of sleep that we go through before we enter the realm of deep sleep. Our heart rate and breathing rates continue to climb down, and our eye movement comes to a halt. Your muscles relax, and your body temperature drops. Even your brain activity finds itself being reduced, with only brief bursts of electrical activity. You spend roughly half of your total time asleep in stage 2 non-REM. Next, we have stage 3 non-REM sleep, and this stage of sleep is critical if you want to awaken feeling refreshed. This is most definitely the deepest stage of sleep, and is also often referred to as delta sleep or even slow wave sleep. It's referred to this because during stage 3 non-REM, slow delta brain waves have been recorded traversing your brain, and during this portion of sleep, your heart and breath slow down to their slowest speeds of the night. And because of this, it's the deepest period of sleep, and it would be very difficult to awaken you during it. The first period of delta sleep during the night is anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes long, and after that, subsequent periods of delta sleep get shorter and shorter. Now we have the final stage of sleep, REM sleep, and in the eyes of many researchers, it is the most fascinating and interesting period of sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement, and that is precisely what is going on under your eyelids while you're in REM. During REM, which begins roughly 90 minutes after you enter stage 1 non-REM, your breathing and heart rate increase to a point near wakefulness. In correlation, your brainwaves and brain activity mimic that of a waking person. REM sleep is also when you dream, and although some dreaming can occur outside of it, the majority of it happens during REM sleep. And while you are undergoing REM sleep, your brain temporarily paralyzes your body so that you do not act on the dreams, And these chemicals released by your brain are the reason we do not often find ourselves, running down the stairs or waking up screaming while we're still asleep, because our body is paralyzed so we don't act on these. And REM is also very interesting because in addition to dreaming and all the things I mentioned before, a vast number of other functions happen as well, such as our brain stores memories from the day, and it primes your brain for the next day. Overall, each stage of the sleep cycle is critical, and the relative importance can depend on several variables such as age and what our daytime activities were. As far as age goes, I gave you some rough estimates on how long those stages last and about what time we'll go through them, but it can vary on age. For example, young people like me need much more REM sleep than older people because our brains are still developing, and REM is the main function that develops our brain. Now, as I mentioned before, most of the activity during sleep takes place in the brain, and that is the thing that makes it such a vital aspect of our lives. Sleep involves several sections of our brain, and here are the main ones. First, we have the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is responsible for letting the brain know that it's time to sleep. It receives information on the amount of light coming in, and based on that information it receives, it acts, and it is located, as you can see, in the deep center of your brain, and it's about the size of a peanut. Next, we have the brainstem, which is more of a combination of multiple structures. You have the pons, the medulla oblongata, and the midbrain. The brainstem controls the transition between waking and sleeping as well. In addition, the pons and medulla affect REM sleep by producing the chemical that paralyzes us during our dreams, like I mentioned before. Now, the third sector of the brain is the thalamus. The thalamus acts as a messenger of information from our 5 senses to our cerebral cortex. Our cerebral cortex, during the night, specifically during REM, controls our long-term and short-term memory. During sleep, the thalamus is active. During the sleep, the thalamus is relatively quiet to let us sleep in peace and factor our surroundings. However, during REM sleep, it becomes active and sends lots of sensory information to our cerebral cortex, and that lives on in our dreams. Next, we have the pineal gland, which coordinates with the hypothalamus and other sections of the brain to produce the hormone melatonin. Melatonin is a very important hormone for our sleep, and scientists have found that the rise and fall of its production correlate directly to our sleep and wake cycle and even our circadian rhythm. Next, we have the basal forebrain, which produces adenosine that pushes our sleep drive. Adenosine is vital to getting sleep, and to show you how vital it is, caffeine, the main chemical in caffeine, what it does is it stops our basal forebrain's release of adenosine, and that's how it's able to disrupt our sleep. The basal forebrain, as you can see, is near the bottom front part of your brain. And lastly, we have the amygdala, which becomes very active during REM sleep. So those are some of the scientific aspects of sleep. Now I want to move on to some of the drastic consequences that can happen if you don't get enough sleep. The impacts are immediate. One expert on the topic from the who is a professor of neuroscience and psychology at the University of California, Berkeley, gives us a scope of how things back can get. First, him and his researchers find that a lack of sleep affects a new part of the brain, the hippocampus. The hippocampus is responsible for absorbing information, memories, and emotions, and it turns out sleep deprivation can have severe impacts on the hippocampus. When we sleep, a lot of our memories from the day are being sent to the hippocampus where they're stored and kept. So when we don't get enough sleep, our brain is not able to reach a state where it can do this, and therefore we're not able to process new memories. As you can imagine, this takes a tremendous toll on our learning ability as well, and that scientist furthers that a lack of sleep can lead to an increase of the production of toxic proteins in your brain. The example he uses is called beta amyloid, which has been linked to Alzheimer's disease. So the way sleep plays into this is because, as mentioned before, during sleep, a lot of these toxins are drained and cleaned out from your brain, allowing your mind to stay healthy and fresh. So obviously, when you don't get sleep, these toxins aren't drained and they get built up. In addition, poor or inadequate sleep can result in harm being done to other areas of your body, not just the brain. For example, scientists have found that those who sleep even 1 to 2 hours less than their peers have significantly less healthy reproductive systems. But that's not all. Studies also find that even just one night of inadequate sleep can lead to a 70% reduction in the production of immune cells in your body. These are known as natural killer cells. The main job of these cells is to fight cancer. So as you can imagine, if one does not get enough sleep, these natural killer cells aren't able to do their job as effectively, and it increases your risk for developing prostate, bowel, and even breast cancer. And these facts have been well reciprocated in the medical community, but they're not that well reciprocated in the real world. For example, recently the World Health Organization classified any sort of nighttime shift work as a probable carcinogen. Among other things, sleep has been linked to cardiovascular disease, depression, weight gain, mood swings, and poor balance or coordination. And aside from all that, when you don't sleep, as I'm sure all of you know, you just don't feel good. So clearly, sleep deprivation is not something to be messed around with. So, some of the causes of sleep deprivation are fairly obvious. A prime cause in today's society would be overworking. We live in a 24-hour, ultra-competitive world where one has to be dedicated to get ahead, but this often leads to inadequate amounts of sleep. For many, this is a small price to pay to get ahead in the race of life, but as I explained, lack of sleep is not something to be messed around with. That aside, sleep deprivation can also be caused by old age, illness, changes in schedule, disruption in the household such as a new baby or a loud neighbor, and surprisingly, we even found television. So back in 2017, I myself conducted an experiment on myself to see whether the results would back up this hypothesis, that if you watch TV or any screen before bedtime, the quality of your sleep will consequentially suffer. I tested this using a device known as the S Plus by ResMed, which measured how much I slept, what stages of sleep I spent the most time in, and what the overall quality of my sleep was. Basically, our independent variable was simply how much time in the 2 hours leading up to bed I watched TV. And in this science fair experiment, I found that overall TV has a negative effect on the duration and quality of sleep. The closer to bedtime you watch TV, your sleep gets progressively worse. While deep sleep's not really directly effective, total time spent asleep, your mind recharge percentage, and REM sleep are all brought down significantly when TV is viewed closer to bed. So this is a graph, as you can see on the left. This was when I did not watch TV before bed, and as you can see, the REM scores are significantly higher. However, as I watched TV closer and closer to bed, my REM sleep consequentially suffered. Now, so I've told you all about how sleep works, what can happen if you don't get enough sleep, but how exactly should somebody go about getting better sleep in terms of both length and quality? Now, before I go into it, just please keep in mind that these are tips that have been found to work in general. And if you have any specific problems, you should definitely consult an expert or address that separately, because like I said, it's a very important thing, sleep. My first tip would be to increase the difference between light exposure during the day and during the nighttime. You want to keep our natural circadian rhythm intact, and a lot of the time that gets messed up and our body and mind gets thrown off. So to fix this, spend more time during the day outdoors, or just at least open up the blinds. That way you're able to associate daytime with light and nighttime with darkness. Next, I would say prior to sleep, it is important to reduce blue light exposure, and that's the light that comes from our screens. Now, I know it makes me sound old when I say this, that, put away the TV, put away the screens, but it's been proven that TV and screens before going to sleep has a negative impact on sleep. Next, I would say stick to the schedule and reduce irregularities in your sleep, because that way, like I said, our circadian rhythm is intact and we're able to know ourselves. Our body tells us it's time to sleep, it's time to get up. Another way to get better at sleep is not to drink substances such as caffeine or alcohol prior to bed. While something like alcohol may help you get to sleep, at least that's what I've heard. I've never really alcohol before bedtime can actually increase risk of diseases such as sleep apnea, which can cause you to have unstable breathing while you're sleeping, and consequently you either snore very loudly or you're repeatedly awakened as you suffocate. In addition, it simply negatively affects your sleep quality as you get less REM sleep. Now, if you're like me, and when you got in bed, despite being incredibly tired, you simply could not go to sleep even if you tried some of these other things, there are some other things you can do, and one of the main ones is controlling your bedroom environment. So what you want to do is, researchers have found that the optimal temperature for your room when you're going to sleep is 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and some of you might find that shocking or very cold, but that is what's recommended. Now, if it is too cold for you, just keep it at a comfortable temperature, but also keep it cool, because you might think that when our bodies are warm and fuzzy, we're probably going to get to sleep like that, but research shows that when it's cooler, it's easier for us to sleep. In addition, keep the room dark. That way we know, our bodies and minds know it's nighttime, it's time to get to sleep. Also, you want to put anything away that distracts you, such as clocks or other things like that can taunt you with, you haven't been able to sleep for this long, and that's just going to stress you out more and you won't be able to sleep. Next, don't exercise immediately before bed. Exercising within the hours that lead up to bed can keep our brains and bodies awake and make sleep difficult. If you find it works for you, great, but for the majority of people, it's definitely not a good idea, because it tells our bodies it's time to be active and get up, and that we're not able to sleep. Now, it's still important to exercise during the daytime and to get some workouts or activities in, because that can actually help your sleep, research has shown. Anyway, so those are some of the brief tips to improve the quality of sleep. Now, to wrap up, sleep is something that all organisms in the animal kingdom undergo in some way, shape, or form. The role it plays in our mental, cardiovascular, and muscular health is unparalleled by almost any other biological function. When we sleep, we're doing a lot more than shutting down and rebooting. We're undergoing an extremely fascinating change everywhere in our body. So I hope, if you get nothing else from this presentation, that you understand how vital sleep is to a healthy lifestyle, that you lay down tonight and try to catch some good sleep. There are only a few reasons you would go home tonight and not be able to sleep after all I've taught you. And I just wanted to end with this quote from Dr. Seuss that says, you only know you're in love when you can't fall asleep, because reality is finally better than your dreams. But until then, I ask you, please let the night fall and allow sleep to come with it. Thank you.
What did you think about the presentation? 10 on 10, Aagam. Wonderful. I wish Thomas Alva Edison was here to listen to your presentation. He would change his quote, right? So I just want to make a few announcements, and we'll open it up for Q&A. And he's, I'm sure, ready for all the questions you have. One is that you can see how powerful it can be when a youth stands and gives a health message. You may have been telling your youth, sleep on time, or do this or do that. And it's tough for them to, receive that message. But when a youth is telling a youth, it's different. And I'm sure all of you, first of all, I want to ask the kids, how did you like it?
It was good.
It was good? Interesting? Yeah? So next time now you can tell your parents, let me sleep and leave me alone, leave me in peace, right? Sleep is important. It's as important as all the other things you're doing, whether it's sports or studies or whatever it is. I just want to make a couple announcements that we have a youth brigade program. It's an opportunity to for youth to give their time to community work and also get all the benefits that we have talked about. So please talk to Kanchan or myself about enrolling your youth. And if any of your youth wants to give the next presentation, we are planning our talks for 2020 now. This is the last for 2019. Please let us know. We usually hold the talks in the parents' homes because these are young, adults, and we want to give them a nice, homely, secure environment. So we don't do it in like halls or something. So if any of you are interested, please let us know. And excellent job, Aagam. The visuals, the pictures, the messaging, everything was fantastic. I'm going to open it up for Q&A. Any questions and any comments? Very welcome.
So, two things.
Yeah.
First, a comment. Really good job. My background is also in neuroscience. I got really excited when you went over that class. I said, oh, good job on the words too, because I know that's. Oh my god! Oh my gosh. But my question to you is, what is your sleep pattern like now?
Like I said, we get a lot of work in school and stuff like that, so I try to sleep as much as I can. Obviously, especially after I did this, I decided, it's pretty important. So I usually do you want like specific time?
I know. Has your sleep actually improved?
Yeah, when I was, like I said, even back in 2017, I already had like sort of an interest in this because like when I was a kid, I had a real problem with it. I had a real problem with getting to sleep, and it wasn't like anything super bad. It was just any like little thing. If I can hear some breathing or if like the clock's ticking, it sat in my head and I wasn't able to sleep like that. But then in the past couple of years and like even in the past couple of months, my sleep it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot more consistent, and I introduced some of those things like. Usually, one of the tips I didn't mention, but briefly, if you take a hot shower before you go to sleep, when you step out of the hot shower, your body cools down and that helps you get to sleep. So I've started doing that and that's helped as well. So yeah, it's gotten better.
So just in case I missed announcing, he's just 14. He's a 9th grader, and the sets of things that he talked about, keep the room cool and dark and all that. That's called sleep hygiene. So it's like other health hygiene, you practice sleep hygiene, which is also, turning off all your gadgets and, switching on something that is pleasant if that helps you. Sound of a flute or, a waterfall or something like that. Those things also help. So, and the other thing is it's not about perfection. It's not about getting the perfect amount of sleep. It's trying to be there as many times as you can, and that makes a lot of difference. It's just like driving, as I said, you can get off the lane. It's very natural, but as long as you come back, that's pretty good. Any of the youth members have any questions? Amog and Nikhil, right? Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Any comments? Mishka? How was it?
Good.
It was informative? Wow.
What stood out the most? Is there like one thing that really stood out? What was your favorite part?
The quotes.
The quotes? What was your favorite one? Quotes and what about you?
Yeah.
So, the amount of sleep you get per night, does it vary from person to person, or is there a set amount of time that you should get?
So, like I said, age plays a big factor in. So when you're younger, obviously infants need like up to 20 hours of sleep every day. Like toddlers, anywhere from 10 to 14. And then around my age, it's recommendable 10 to 12, 9 to 12. But then once you get into adulthood, you don't need as much. So the recommended for adults across the board is about 8 to 10. And personally, I've never really needed like 10 hours of sleep, but 8 or 9 suffices for me. So it does depend on the person, but across the board, for adults, 8 to 10 recommended.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, that it does vary person to person, the sleep requirement. Any amount of sleep that helps you wake refreshed is your correct amount of sleep.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. So one, I just really want to commend you. You're very well spoken, and that was phenomenally put together. Also, I'm going to age myself. So I'm 34, and I literally just learned about this stuff like neurotoxins and all that kind of stuff probably within the last 3 years because of my own health issues. So you are like way ahead of the game, and this is going to benefit you and everyone you talk to about it. And then secondly, I work with a bunch of high school youth, and they all struggle with this. They are up way too late, they're stressed with their work, they watch TV all the time, they don't fall asleep until 2, 3 in the morning. I would love to explore if there's a way that you specifically could come and talk to more youth in other communities. I would be happy to make that connection if it's possible.
Yeah, we will definitely, and that's one of the things we would love
that
to
would be
discuss.
awesome.
But as someone who is chairing a youth council, do you have any comments on this program?
So the youth that I work with, they're all currently advocating in the community that I'm from. It's about an hour from here. We're in Haverhill, and they are doing a lot of advocacy in front of school committee and city council for supportive services, funding inside schools, and a big one is health related. So I definitely see that there's like the real potential for collaboration and just kind of advocating for these kinds of resources for youth. And as far as what you guys are doing, I think it's phenomenal. I think there's real opportunity to keep sharing this knowledge and getting it out there. I think it's wanted. I know it's wanted.
I think information is power. And I think, as you just mentioned, that you wish you knew this before.
Absolutely.
So think about him. He's kind of ahead of the game, and everybody, all the youth who have heard, it will remain in their psyche, for years to come. Yeah.
So just quick, thank you for being a wellness ambassador, and also the deep wisdom, traditional wisdom still holds true in the modern world. That's what you have explained, and thank you for organizing this. You have done a fantastic job to explain us what the sleep is and why the sleep is important and how we can improve ourselves, because life is busy. Life, everyone you describe the success, and why the wellness is important. And I myself, again, very fortunate to close to this wisdom, and I myself experience a lot of REM sleep, by the way, because I'm a practitioner of meditation and particularly Vipassana. So I know what REM sleep means and how important it is to feel so good. If you want to know how was your sleep, when you wake up in the morning, you know it.
Exactly.
That's it. So if you get 2 hours of sleep, REM sleep, I think you'll be very productive, right? Because I think body needs to just lay down, but the mind is the one who needs a lot more relaxation, and it comes through that meditation and practice. But this age, children are listening and hearing, and of course, I learned a lot today. There are 4 stages of sleep, and I knew that what is REM.
I mean, that's what we see in our presentations, that not only the youth but the adults leave very inspired, because sometimes adults also are not very aware of really what needs to be done. Everybody is just running, like he showed everybody.
So one just last comment, you talk about the health hygiene, like that environment, and it's so important. And this is my tea, that is, I inherited it from my dad, and I think probably I spoke. So one hygiene that I do, I've been practicing this, just imagine since my youth. I have the scarf, I have, each day I change it. It's a simple cloth, basically. What we call the simple cloth, and I wrap around my head, basically. When I sleep, basically, I just wrap around my head, and I just keep my thing open. When I have that cloth will be little bit on my nose so I can feel that anapana sensation. But the cloth is wrapped and it's complete dark basically. Now what happens around my surrounding, somebody's on TV, generally my home is pretty quieter, but still, there is someone opens someone turns on the light, comes, daughter will come or son will come, turn on the light to get something because they forgot something. It doesn't bother me if I'm on sleep, it's 9:30, that's what my time is. And it's completely dark. And my dad used to rap like this. I have just emulated by just observing him and why he does that. It has a tremendous effect. If you wanted this is a free tip. Just take your clothes, just like a cloth, basically wrap around and sleep. And you are going to have that.
Thank you.
Another understanding. If somebody sees that cloth is there, like they are not supposed to touch you.
That's right.
Thank you.
What if you're listening to something and sleeping?
That's like I said, it depends on the person. So personally, I do listen to like some relaxing, like just mellow music before I go to sleep. It helps me. For some people, like my parents, absolutely hate listening to music before they go to sleep. But if you find it helps you, then yeah, I totally recommend doing that. You just gotta find what works for you. These are just in general.
You like to listen to something while sleeping? Try to have it in your surrounding, not in your ears.
Yeah.
I think that's the only recommendation.
Just put what I do is I just put a speaker in the corner of my room, really low volume on my nightstand, and I just.
And what do you listen?
Just like calm, like.
Oh,
music.
calm. Yeah, actually I have the calm app, so sometimes I use that all the time.
Even YouTube has it. I use sleep meditations and
A lot of free resources are there
Yeah.
online.
So another tip on that is what I do when I go my evening prayer. Let's say I'm praying my evening prayer. Generally I do Raga Bogi basically, and similarly any song. But after that is done, it's tuning in my mind. I'm not listening actively, but I'm listening.
Right.
I'm not listening, but I'm listening. You see this difference because I have already completed that ritual 30 minutes before, and now I'm still saying. So it's going on my head basically, and slowly it fades away. It doesn't happen, And then I don't want that too because again
That's an interference too. At some point.
Exactly. Yeah. You need to get away with that too.
So it's a monkey mind, you give monkey mind one thing that it can hold and stay, it could be anything.
Exactly.
That's working for you, but it could be music, it could be something else. So, yeah.
One quick thing that I've realized for myself when I've had trouble sleeping is that it's when you can kind of physically or consciously recognize that you're not letting yourself sleep. Like you can feel almost like a blockage of your mind. Like it's almost like if you tell yourself, I want to let myself sleep, you're almost opening that door to let your mind actually shut down. Rather than saying, I can't sleep, like, oh, I see myself blocking myself. And so if you're recognizing that actually helps you fall asleep faster.
So, yeah, that's like what I was saying is just try and if you can't sleep, if you really can't sleep, which is a lot of what happened to me when I was younger, just don't think about it. If you have to, do something else, be productive, read a book, and then just relax. And because if you're saying, oh, it's been an hour, I haven't been able to sleep, you're stressing yourself out, right? Actually, in the army and a lot of those, what a method they use for I've read about it is fighter pilots and stuff. What they do is they have the pilots to fall asleep in less than 2 minutes almost every time. They just basically clear their mind. Don't think. That's a mantra they repeat in their head, and they just completely relax every muscle in their body one by one, and then in 2 minutes, most of the time with good practice, they're asleep. So it just goes to show how much your brain plays into it. Even if your body's relaxed, your brain isn't.
So yoga teaches a lot of things that you can do to sleep. There's some restorative poses that you can do. I could talk about it for a long time, but one of the good ones is legs up the wall pose. It relaxes you tremendously. There are some breath work that you can do. If you guys have heard about alternate nostril breathing, it's really calming. And you do a few rounds of that. That itself will put you into the good sleeping mode. Another thing that I really share with all my yoga students is massaging your feet. It's a really simple thing to do. You can do it for the babies and the little kids as well. I'm always done it to my kids when I put them to bed, rub their feet, and now I do it for myself. So those little things, you create sort of a nighttime routine.
Right.
All of these things really help. Like you said, hot shower, listening to music. So you create the atmosphere that it's time to go to bed.
Yeah, for yoga, actually, I have experience in my engineering college. Somebody came, like some saint or somebody, and he gave the demonstration and he taught us about the yoga nidra. So I remember, like, you have to do this, and 15 minutes your knee should be like touching the tummy or something, and it was very helpful. I used it for a long time, but I gave up. So now I just
today you will feel motivated.
Now I remember and feeling the motivation, like I will try to do it again. So that's very good presentation, and there are few things actually I remember, like because it is target toward the youth. So some action items are good for the parents, such as like dimming the light and opening the blind and lower the temperature. And some action items are specifically for the youth. So like parents need to understand that action item means this is not everything youth can do themselves. Like we have to split like two set of responsibility, one for parents, one for the youth. So like burden is half. So I know what are the action items for me. I will try to do, and I'm not sure he is remembering his action items, like not do
what's his name? Adi. How did you like it?
It was pretty good.
Pretty good. What's one thing that stood out to you?
Like don't use screens before.
Yeah, I don't like it when I
That's called blue light.
Yeah,
and that interferes with sleep. So great. I think it comes with practice, one thing at a time, and role modeling is the best way to teach. I think parental responsibility is also role modeling, not just closing the blinds and all that. If the parents are awake till 2, I think kids are not going to take the message. So thank you everybody, and I just want to repeat that you can enroll your youth today if you like, and the Kanchan is there. We would love to enroll you. And keep start bringing in more and more youth. We want to come to Jago World also and motivate the youth, because you can see how one presentation can be very powerful, not just for the youth but for the adults. I think we are all reminded as adults what is the value of sleep, So any final comments, questions we can take? Otherwise I think we have some nice hot snacks.
I mean, if you have any questions, not just in the presentation, but about sleep in general, I mean, obviously I did a lot of research for this, so just ask me. I might know the answers.
Oh, we have a question?
In the beginning you said Thomas A. Edison that he believed you should take away sleep. When did people stop believing that?
I mean, I think no, but he himself thought he didn't like sleep. He thought it was inefficient, and he slept as little as possible. But I mean, almost everybody likes sleep. You like just getting to relax and lay down in bed. So it's not necessarily in his time they wanted to take it away, but in his time, 4 to 5 hours was like, okay, that's fine. You sleep 4 to 5 hours. But today, if somebody says I sleep 4 to 5 hours, it's it's way below what you want to be sleeping.
It's also the levels of stress are very high these days, so sleep counters your stress levels. So it is even more important than in the time of Edison. I practice Ayurveda, as I said, and Ayurveda has considered sleep as one of the 3 limbs of health. Ahara, Nidra, Brahmacharya. Ahara is food, Nidra is sleep, Brahmacharya is discipline. So sleep has been equated same as food, you can imagine, 5,000 years ago. And in modern medicine, sleep studies, sleep labs have just come up 2 decades ago at the most. So only now we are learning more and more and more. Your immunity is connected with your sleep quality, your memory, your focus, your attention, your emotions, your hormones. So more and more, it's like you're uncovering what is the value of sleep in overall health. So that's amazing, and 5,000 years ago, Ayurveda Yoga knew about it.
I just want to say also that unfortunately we live in a time that sleep held by a lot of people is considered kind of like I'm still wasting time, or I feel guilty for taking care of myself. It's kind of a negative thing, like how dare you be selfish to take care of yourself. So it's more like we were saying all around is that we need to make it a norm in households, like make it a normal thing for kids to say, oh, I should probably sleep. Or I mean, I know families that my own parents, they don't get enough sleep, so why would the kid listen to, or change something different from the parent? So it's more of a societal norm to change.
It's like, yeah, it's a social thing. Like a lot of my friends are like, they try to brag, oh yeah, I only got 2 hours of sleep last night.
It's like,
Yeah, I just look at it and I go, I got 8 hours of sleep.
It's like who can pull an all-nighter?
Exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
smart.
It's just not.
Yeah, and it is changing with the time. Like
Exactly. My mother and her siblings, I'm not kidding, Kat and Greg have seen this. They have a competition over who has not sleep. They're like, I only slept 2 hours, I only slept 1.
They're
I
so
only slept.
productive.
They're like, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It's the most unsmart thing.
Right? I'm like,
But
why?
they think that whoever gets up earlier and does more things in the morning is the more productive person.
Exactly.
Which is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
a couple of 100 years ago, like people used to live very short life, like maybe 40 years, 35, 40. If you are 50, like you are great. So at that time, you have this leeway to experiment with your sleep and all those things because you are going to die and you are 50. So, right?
Even then, you're living by a sleep cycle of, there's really not much electricity, so you're just going to sleep when the sun goes down most
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah,
obviously.
and up when the
that's
sun
true.
is up.
There was
Very
no
few people
energy
can
light.
afford that candle or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you
Veil
gotta-
rubber and all those are so expensive and
And we are also looking for a youth program director. So any of the adults, if you are free, available, willing, passionate, please talk. We. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.